Good morning, one and all. I am Parthasarathy Mishra doing my PhD under Dr. Soumi Modi at NIT Rourkela. Today, for the International Conference on Blood Boundaries in Search of an Identity, my topic for the presentation is Architectural Heritage Assessment Model through Analytical Hierarchy Process and Complex Proportional Assessment in case of Odishan Temple Architecture. For the content of my presentation, this is the following sequences. Starting with the introduction, study area, and the materials and method. In materials and method, we have three subsections. Identification of parameters through literature study, analytical hierarchy process AHP, then complex proportional assessment COPRAS, then analysis through AHP COPRAS, and grouping of Odishan Temple Architecture, and in the end conclusion. Now the introduction part. The term architectural heritage deals with other similar terms like architectural built heritage, monuments, historical buildings, and cultural built heritage. Now in this presentation I am using the term architectural heritage onwards. Previously, architectural heritage values were only focused on architectural, archaeological, and historical perspective. However, in the last few decades, sustainable aspects such as environmental, economic, and cultural aspects have come into play in the value assessment process of architectural heritage. These multidimensional aspects require multi-domain expertise for identification, evaluation, and selection of architectural heritage, involving multiple experts and stakeholders. Many international organizations have identified the dimensions of the selection process of architectural heritage. For the World Heritage Site, WHS, UNESCO and ICOMOS have recommended 10 broad criteria known as Outstanding Universal Values or OUV. From these 10 criteria, 6 are recommended for selecting cultural heritage and the remaining 4 are recommended for the selection of natural heritage. For the Indian context, due to restriction to access to people who belong to various religious backgrounds, many Indian temples do not fulfill the World Heritage Site guidelines. Considering the religious sentiments of Indians, this study develops an assessment procedure for the Odishan Temple Architecture. It also develops a multidimensional evaluation procedure involving the opinions of multiple stakeholders, as it is not a common procedure for evaluating architectural heritage in India and the world. This study identified 5 broad dimensions in a framework incorporating all possible parameters that influence the values of Odishan Temple Architecture directly or indirectly and positively or negatively. Now the study area. This study area comprises 39 temples of Odishan Temple Architecture. Out of which 39 temples are in the Ekambra Kshetra area, Bhubaneswar, Jagannath Temple at Puri, and Sun Temple at Konark. The three eminent temples, Lingaraj, Jagannath, and Sun Temple at Konark, form a golden triangle for Odishan tourism. This research focused on multidimensional value grouping and ranking of Odishan Temple Architecture that has not been done so far. Again, the sample of 39 temples includes one World Heritage Site, that is the Sun Temple at Konark, 18 Central ASI Protected Monument, 14 State ASI Protected Monuments, and 6 unlisted unrecorded temples of Odisha. The names of all selected temples are presented in this. Now in the material and method section, first we have identification of parameters through literature study. Figure 2 shows the methodological steps for value assessment of architectural heritage model through AHP and COPRAS for Odishan Temple Architecture. Initially, the parameters for value assessment of Odishan Temple Architecture were identified and selected through a literature. The level of importance of these parameters were calculated using the AHP process. Subsequently, the level of importance of these parameters were aggregated with their values with the COPRAS method. The values obtained through AHP plus COPRAS method were ranked and grouped to is the decision making process. MS3 shows the parameters for the value assessment of OTA, which were identified from the literature studies of international organizations, governmental agencies, and research scholars. In the end, we have 5 dimensions, 9 sub-dimensions, and 41 parameters for the value assessment of Odishan Temple Architecture. Now the analytical hierarchy process. AHP is the most popular MCDM method developed by SETI in 1987 to evaluate the relative importance of attributes. In the study, AHP was used to obtain the weights of the parameter. The methodological steps for the AHP are shown in figure 5. The AHP process is a 3-step approach, forming a hierarchical model, prioritizing the parameters and subdimensions, and checking the consistency among the experts for their opinion while conducting the questionnaires. The questionnaires were based on SETI fundamental scale as shown in table 1. Equation 1 to 6 are used for establishing, obtaining the weights and checking the consistency among the experts for the AHP process. The consistency ratio is compared with the tabulated random index value Ri as shown in table 2. Now the COPRAS or the complex proportional assessment method. Figure 6 shows the methodological steps for the COPRAS, where on the right hand side of the slide shows the detailed steps with equation for COPRAS method. Step 1 is determining the decision matrix for the parameters for various Odishan Temple Architecture. Step 2 is normalizing the decision matrix. Step 3 is calculating the weighted normalized decision matrix. Step 4 is to calculate the sum of weighted normalization values for the beneficial and non-beneficial parameters by using equation 10. Step 5 is calculating the relative significance of OTA using equation 11. Step 6 is calculating the quantitative utility for each Odishan Temple Architecture using equation 12. Step 7 is ranking of the utility score among the Odishan Temple Architecture. Higher the utility score, higher is the rank among the OTA. Now the analysis part. With the application with Odishan Temple Architecture, the analysis shows the result. A set of questionnaire was prepared and circulated among the experts. 10 experts participated in this process from the fields of architectural heritage and their allied fields, having more than 10 years of experience in their relevant fields. In the questionnaire, a pairwise comparison of the parameters and subdimensions were performed. A sample of the questionnaire is presented in table 3. After obtaining the required data from the experts, the level of importance of the parameters or subdimensions were evaluated using equation 1 to 6 as shown in table 4. Simultaneously, the consistency ratio values for each subdimensions and dimensions were obtained for the validity and reliability of the experts' consensus. Two types of weights were derived from the analytical process. One is local weights and the global weight. The AHP process provides the local weights of the parameters and subdimensions. The global weights of the parameters were obtained by multiplying the local weights of the parameters and the subdimensions. The greater global weights of the parameters indicates a global contribution to each dimension. Now the analysis with COPRAS method. Data were collected through 3 schedules for opinions of the stakeholders, observational parameters and parameters for the secondary sources of data. After collecting the relevant data for each parameter, COPRAS was executed. The final values or quantitative utility scores for each dimensions for each temple were listed in table 5. The ranks of OTA determined through this process are listed in table 6. Now the analysis for grouping of Odishan Temple Architecture. After obtaining the utility performance score for each dimensions for each temple, the final aggregated values were obtained and used for the overall ranking of the selected temples. These 39 temples were grouped based on data distribution method using the mean and standard deviation values from the utility